Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Matt Lateplo, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from LIFFF Power Limited. Please note you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Francis McDonald, CEO and Director of LIFFF Power Limited, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol LIFFF and on the TSXV under the symbol LIFT. Welcome, Francis.
Thanks, and thanks everyone for tuning in. My name is Francis McDonald, as I was introduced, and I'll be taking you through the LIFFF story today. I will be making some forward-looking statements, and this is on our website, so please review this at your leisure, but the main part is do your own due diligence. So I'll just start out with some high-level points of why you would invest in LIFFF. And the first one is resource potential. So our Yellowknife lithium project, which is what I'll be focusing on today, this could potentially be one of the largest hard rock lithium resources in North America. And obviously, if you have a big resource that's in the ground, that is a good reason to invest. The second reason is infrastructure, and this is equally as important as the resource potential. These spodumene deposits or hard rock lithium deposits, you have to transport a lot of material. And so we are along an existing paved highway. It goes through 7 of our deposits, and we are 60 kilometers outside the city of Yellowknife, which is the capital of the Northwest Territories in Canada. We're taking an expedited strategy, and when I say this, we feel that getting lithium deposits up into production, we're in a race. And so we need to make sure that we're advancing things as quickly as we can. There is a lot of lithium out there in the world, and people that get up into production quickly will be the winners. So how we've been applying this strategy is that we have been out drilling aggressively. We completed 34,000 meters of drilling this summer, and we'll go out and drill about another 25,000 meters this winter. That's budgeted so far. And right now we're targeting a mineral resource estimate around August or September of 2024. And then after that, a preliminary economic assessment that will follow shortly after. ESG is a big pillar. And so when I say ESG, this is relationships with indigenous communities and also the town of Yellowknife. And also we are putting a big emphasis on collecting environmental baseline data this year because we need that to get into the permitting process. The team is a big part of this, and so we have a track record of discovery of new mineral deposits, M&A in the lithium space, and building out mines in the Northwest Territories, and access to capital. So we've raised about $80 million in the company to date, and we have strong support from existing shareholders. So I'll just jump into the Yellowknife area. So Yellowknife is the capital city of the Northwest Territories, and it's on the north side of Great Slave Lake. It's about 20,000 people. On this map, each one of those green dots that you see is one of the spodumene pegmatites or one of the lithium deposits. And so going out to the east of Yellowknife, you can see there's a line on the map. That's a road, and you can see that there's dots along that road. And that road is a paved highway. 7 of the lithium deposits are within 5 kilometers of that paved highway. Going out to the west of Yellowknife is another provincially maintained highway, and that takes you down to the town of Hay River. And Hay River is important because that's where the railroad starts. And that railroad takes you down to Edmonton, and then from Edmonton you can get out to the port at Prince Rupert, or you can go further down into the States. And the other part to the infrastructure story is Great Slave Lake. So this is a massive inland lake. It's about 200 kilometers across the lake from Yellowknife to Hay River. And during the summer months when the lake isn't frozen, you can be barging spodumene concentrate from Yellowknife directly to rail and Hay River, and that's going to drastically reduce the shipping costs. And so when you look at this compared to other Canadian spodumene projects, this is really one of the best located relative to transport infrastructure. So ESG highlights, we've brought in a chief sustainability officer, and I think that shows that we are committed to this. And when I'm talking about ESG, it's really environmental engagement and permitting. And we have great relationships with the indigenous groups. We signed an exploration agreement with the Yellowknives Dene First Nation this year, which allows us to do any exploration activities up until commercial production, or it's superseded by an impact benefits agreement. And we've also started collecting environmental baseline data this year. And that's because we need 2 years of data to enter into the permitting process. And in Canada, the bottleneck to projects going forward is permitting. And so it's with that recognition that we are focusing a lot on that permitting process and trying to expedite things as much as possible. So this is what these deposits look like. And the catchphrase is that these are visible from space. On the left-hand side, this is satellite imagery. And those big white veins that you see crossing the landscape, those are the lithium deposits. And on the right-hand side, this is a shot from the helicopter at the start of our drill program this summer. And you can see a diamond drill rig in green on the right-hand side of that photo, and it's aimed at that big white wall of rock, which is high-grade lithium. So when things stick out of the ground like this, it's really easy to see how big things can be, because we know 2 dimensions already. It's up to 2 kilometers long, they're up to 40 meters wide on surface, and we're really just trying to define how deep they go into the earth. And then the other thing when you have outcropping exposures like this is that you can do a lot of detailed work on surface. And that's what's been done in the past. So this map is looking at some of the historical work that was completed from the 1950s up until the 1980s. And there was extensive exploration done for lithium during those years. On the left-hand side, this is channel sampling. And when I say channel sampling, in the 50s, they blasted trenches across these outcrops, and then they sampled those trenches systematically to get an idea of the grade across the big white vein that you see. And so the grades are displayed in the colors. So purple is greater than 1.5 lithia, which is Li2O. Red is 1.25 to 1.5. And so the key takeaway here is that we've got economic grades on surface, and also all of the 13 spodumene pegmatites in our portfolio have a similar amount of historic work that's been done on them. This map is showing all of the 13 deposits that are in our portfolio, and these are all at the same scale. So I'll run through a few of them. So Phi Main is about 1.8 kilometers long, averaging about 15 meters wide. Historically is about 1% lithia. Phi Southwest, 900 meters long, 25 meters wide, and averaging about 1.49%. The Shorty pegmatite, so it's about 500 meters long, 25 meters wide, and 1.07%. And Kai is about 1.5 kilometers long, 15 meters wide, and 1.4%. So all of those dikes that I just mentioned are within a 3-kilometer radius, and they are 5 kilometers off the highway. And this is a center of mass for the project. Going to cluster number 2, so if we're looking at the inset map in the top left, this is going back towards the city of Yellowknife. It's also along the highway. And so we have 3 deposits in that cluster, so Big East and Big West. These are pegmatite dike swarms. And when I say that, there's a number of dikes that are coming up within a corridor. Big East has been a big surprise because we see thin dikes on surface, but they are all coalescing into one big dike at depth. So that's been really positive. And again, all 3 of these dikes have about a 1 kilometer strike length. And going out to cluster number 3, so this is further out from Yellowknife. The Echo deposit is the big show out there, and that's in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. So this one is a little bit different because we have a number of pegmatite dikes that are coming up within a circular area. And that's pretty favorable from a mining standpoint, because if you have a circular pit, it limits the strip ratio that you have. So Echo is the main attraction out in that 3rd cluster. So all in all, there's about 10 kilometers of pegmatite dikes with average meters about 15 meters wide. This is looking at what we completed this year. So we went out and drilled about 34,000 meters. That was with 6 diamond drill rigs, and that program just shut down at the start of November. So 34,000 meters testing 8 different pegmatites, and we drilled 198 holes. So currently we have released about 100 holes to the market, and we've been putting out drill results every Tuesday, and we'll continue to do that into the new year. Just going through some of the highlights. So we have released holes from 5 different deposits. And in the bottom tables here, these are the top 5 drill intersects from each ones. But I will talk to the top table. So this is the average drill intersects per deposit. And so Phi Southwest is about 35 meters at 1.15. Phi Main is about 27 meters at 1.11. Big East, 34 meters at 1.32. Shorty, 20 meters at 1.19. And Chi, 13 meters at about 1.08. And again, this is 5 out of the 8 pegmatites that we drilled. We'll be releasing new results from new pegmatites in the coming months. And just talking about the spodumene crystal sizes a little bit. So the core, or the photos that you see here, this is drill core from each of the 8 pegmatites that we've drilled. And the white crystals that you see, those are spodumene crystals, which is the lithium-bearing mineral that we're looking for. And so in general, the spodumene crystals are fairly coarse. And the significance of that is that they can be captured with a dense media separation circuit. So this is a pretty simplistic gravity separation to get the spodumene crystals out. I'll just touch a little bit on the timeline, and I alluded to this before, but there has been a lot of work in the Yellowknife district looking for lithium deposits. So this all started in about 1940. Yellowknife was a gold mining town, and because of that, there was a lot of exploration around the Yellowknife area. And while people were out looking for gold, they saw these big white veins across the landscape, and that was the discovery of these lithium deposits. In the 1950s, there was a run in lithium prices, and that's because the US government was buying up lithium hydroxide because they needed it to make hydrogen bombs. So in the 50s, there was 4 American companies that were up in the area that were developing lithium resources. And then eventually the lithium price died down. The US didn't need as many hydrogen bombs as it thought. And so Yellowknife, the Yellowknife lithium project kind of faded away for a little while. Then in the 1970s, the original owner of the project, who I'll call the old guy, he got interested in lithium because his brother was a nuclear fusion researcher. And his brother said, look, we're going to need lithium for fusion. Just go out and find it. And so he was out all over the place. He was in Australia, South America, down in the Carolinas in the US. And then he eventually settled on Yellowknife as what he thought was one of the best hard rock lithium opportunities out there. And so he staked all of the ground in the 70s and did a deal with Superior Oil, which was a big US oil company at the time. And they were the ones that did a lot of this work that I was showing you, so channel sampling, drilling in the 70s, and they did quite a good job. In 1980, Superior Oil decided to exit the minerals business, and this was similar to a lot of the big oil companies at the time. They all decided to exit around 1980. And then 1983, Superior Oil was acquired by Mobil, which turned into ExxonMobil. And that was about a $6 billion transaction at the time, and obviously for the oil and gas assets and not for the lithium. So Mobil ended up with this project. They had no interest in hard rock lithium in the 80s, and so it reverted back to the old guy. And then in 1985, he did a deal with a company called Equinox Resources, and this was the first company of a big Canadian mining entrepreneur whose name is Ross Beatty. And so in 1987, Equinox was up there bulk sampling for metallurgical testing. That was positive, and they recommended a feasibility study at that time. Then during those years, Equinox was all over the place, and they ended up finding the Rosebud gold deposit. And that led Hecla, a silver miner, to buy Equinox. And so Hecla ended up with this lithium property and again had no interest in lithium. And so again, it reverted back to the old guy. And so it's sat in his private company since 1994, and there's been no historic work done on it since then. And what he said was that he was waiting for the right time and also the right people to come along. And so we convinced him we're the right people, and this is the right time for lithium. So just touching on some of the historic results, and this is just talking about the metallurgical work that was done. In 1987, the metallurgical study was positive, and they produced a spodumene concentrate between 5 and 6% lithia with an overall recovery of 80%. And the other key points here is that there was low iron content in the spodumene concentrate. Iron is one of the nasty elements that you don't want, or the lithium converters don't want. So this was all very positive, and it's very good signs that we'll be able to get the lithium out of the rocks. And so we are completing our own studies. We've collected all of those samples this year, and we should be coming out and bringing that to market in March or April of next year. Just talking about Canadian Superior Exploration. So this was Superior Oil. These were the guys up here in the 70s looking for lithium. And they published this paper in a journal called Energy in 1978. And this was their synopsis of the work that they had done in the district. And the key takeaway point here is that in this paper, they put their resource potential estimate, which they thought was 49 million tons at a grade of 1.4% down to a vertical depth of 150 meters. And just to kind of put this into context, we are going to take a resource down to 300 meters, and it's basically just doubling what they thought was there. So that's kind of the target that we're going for. And then another way to think about this and look at this is with a comparison to another known asset, and that would be Sigma Lithium. And so Sigma is producing spodumene concentrate. They're much further along in terms of the project development than we are at LIFFF. But from a geologic perspective, the deposits are very similar. They are both lithium pegmatite districts, and they have a number of dikes that are feeding into a global resource estimate. So on this map, everything in green, these are the lithium deposits that make up the Sigma Lithium resource. And just for context, so Sigma is trading at about a $3 billion US valuation right now. So everything in green is Sigma, everything in yellow is our Yellowknife project. Everything is at the same scale. And so when you project all of these dikes at Sigma to surface, you come out with about 83,000 square meters of surface area. The surface area of the lithium deposits in Yellowknife is about 158,000 square meters. The global resource at Sigma is about 86 million tons. And so we're not sure what it will be at Yellowknife, but I think just from the surface expressions, you can see that we could have just as big or quite a bit bigger of a resource than Sigma Lithium, which is trading at a $3 billion valuation. And then to put this in a little bit more context from a peer benchmarking perspective. So today, LIFFF is trading at about a $220 million valuation, and that is Canadian dollars. So somewhere around 160 million US. I talked about Sigma, so trading at about a $3 billion valuation. And again, we're not in the same place that they are, but we think that that is the long-term upside that we can get to. Some other ones that are out in the marketplace right now, Azure Minerals in Australia. So exploration stage project. SQM, the large Chilean lithium producer, made an offer of about a $1.6 billion bid for the company. And Azure is a company, they own 60% of the Andover lithium project. So on a 100% project basis, that values the project at about $2.7 billion. Corvette and Patriot Battery Metals. So this is another great Canadian deposit in discovery. And they came out with about a 100 million ton resource valued at about 1.2 million Canadian at this point. And then Latin Resources is another one, 45 million tons at about a $600 million valuation. So the key takeaway point here is that if you believe we can get up into that 100 million ton range for a resource, there should be a massive re-rate in the stock once we come out with a resource estimate like that. And I think it's pretty easy to see that we have the potential to get there. Just in terms of a timeline, so going through the last months, we started from zero, and LIFFF acquired this project. The transaction closed in January of 2023. And so it's been a big year. We had to get the First Nations on side. We signed an exploration agreement in June. The drill program kicked off the next day in June. And so we drilled about 34,000 meters from June up until November. We built a 49-person camp, collected bulk samples for metallurgy, and that program shut down around November 1st. So we'll be back in drilling January 7th, and that's going to be about a 25,000 meter program that will go until April. We'll collect geotechnical and hydrogeology information, and all of this is leading towards a maiden resource estimate that will come out around August or September of next year. And then at that point, we'll have all of the engineering studies that will go into a preliminary economic assessment that will come out shortly after that. In terms of our share structure, right now we have about 40.8 million shares outstanding, and on a fully diluted basis, 41.6 million shares. The market cap is around, like I was saying, it's down a little bit, so $220 million valuation, and we have about $18 million in cash in the bank right now. In terms of analyst coverage, so Katie LaChapelle from Canaccord, Ahmed Shath from Beacon, and Brandon Gaspar from SCP currently have coverage right now. And then in terms of ownership, so founding shareholders have about 50% of the company. Institutional has about 20%, retail is about 24%, and management and directors have about 5%. And so we are in one of the worst markets in a while in the Canadian equity space, but I think LIFFF has held up fairly well relative to our peers. And just to talk through some of the people that are involved in all of this. So I'm Francis McDonald. My background is exploration geology, and I spent, I guess it's the majority of my career with Newmont, who's a big gold mining company based out of the US. And then I was a founder of a project generating company. We were staking claims and bringing in bigger companies to spend their exploration dollars. And we went out and found a couple new gold deposits, one with Sumitomo, a big Japanese trading house, as a partner. Alex Langer, Alex has a capital markets background. He was involved with Millennial Lithium, and this is a lithium company in Argentina, and that sold to Lithium Americas about 2 years ago for a $500 million price tag. Andy Marshall, CFO. Andy's been involved in a number of public companies in that CFO role in the last years. April Hayward, Chief Sustainability Officer. So April had that same position with one of the operating diamond mines in the Northwest Territories, and her portfolio was environmental permitting and engagement. Dave Smithson. So Dave is SVP of Geology. Dave was at Newmont at the same time as me, and his role was global structural geologist. So he was running around to Newmont's operations looking to add ounces at the mines. And then he was involved in starting a number of other companies that were doing big greenfields exploration throughout the Americas. And then we have Daniel Gordon, who's just joined us, who is our manager of IR, and he's got about 10 years in that role. And directors, I'll just speak to one to save some time for questions. So Ian Scarr. Ian was the VP of Exploration and Commercial Director for Rio Tinto in their Industrial Minerals Division. And he's been involved in taking 3 lithium brine projects to feasibility and onwards to acquisition. So just to wrap it all up, we believe this is one of the most exciting exploration portfolios out there, and we think there's world-class potential here, especially at our Yellowknife project. We're well-financed, tight share structure. We drilled 34,000 meters this year, and we'll be looking to put a maiden resource estimate out in 2024. And thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll throw it over for questions now. So I have some questions here. So the first one is, can you speak to the infrastructure in place for Yellowknife? And I'm just going to go back to the map here. So this map is looking at the infrastructure around Yellowknife, and it is the capital city of the Northwest Territories. There's an airport in the city, so you can fly there from Vancouver or Calgary within about 2 hours. And once you're in the city, you just drive out from the city center along this paved highway. And in the winter, you can drive right into our camp, which is within a few hundred meters of the lithium deposits. So from a transport infrastructure standpoint, again, this is there's not many deposits out there like this, especially in Canada. And so that's to get to the deposits and then getting a spodumene concentrate out. So there's 2 ways. You would go in the winter, you would drive around the lake, and that takes you down to Hay River. It's about 480 kilometers from Yellowknife down to rail. And then once you're on rail, it becomes a lot cheaper. It's about 5 times less than trucking it, and you would get down to Edmonton. We believe that we're running some numbers on this right now, but it's relatively cheap to get out to the port of Prince Rupert. And that's probably the best place to get it to. And during the summer, you can be barging concentrate across. And because barges, you have one tugboat that's hauling a big barge, you can put a lot more material on barges. And so that decreases your shipping costs. From a power perspective, there is hydropower that is powering Yellowknife, and there is some excess power that we would be able to use from there. And I think that's the big key points on the infrastructure. The next question was, when will you have the Yellowknife resource estimate? So again, this was we're aiming for August or September of next year, and that would be a cutoff date on drilling around April 15th. So it just depends when we can get the drilling done, and if we need to prolong the drilling, that will push out the resource estimate, but it will be within the calendar year of 2024 for sure. The next question is key milestones for 2024, and does your $18 million cash position cover your 2024 initiatives? So the $18 million in cash, that will fund us to April, and that will fund the winter drill program and also the geotechnical and hydrogeology studies. So it will have enough cash to cover that, and then it's really about putting out the resource estimate after that. And once that comes out, then there should be a re-rate, and we will probably look to start infill drilling and increasing the confidence on that resource. The next question, are you seeing an increase in M&A in the lithium space? It's a great question because there has been a big increase in M&A in the lithium space, and especially in Australia. So we've seen a big fight going on between foreign companies and big Western Australian mining magnates, where we have companies like Albemarle, which is based in the US, or SQM, which is the Chilean mining company, looking to acquire early stage assets and then getting blocked by people like Gina Reinhardt and Minres, so another big lithium company. And the prices that people are willing to pay in Australia are astronomical. And I think it's getting to the point where people see it as being overvalued. And if you're looking for lithium assets, there's really, in my mind, two places that you would go. It would be Brazil or Canada. And I think that's going to funnel down to both of those jurisdictions. And when you look at Canada, I really do think that we are one of the best placed because of the resource potential, but also because of the already existing infrastructure that's in place. And I think that's everything from the question side. So if there's no more questions, again, thanks everyone for tuning in.